Why, thank you. I just made it last night. All right. Are we ready? I don't need no introduction.
Okay, so we had let's see, what did we have today? We had an artist, we had people from NASA. Now we have a chef. I'm not going to say too much more than that. You want to say your Twitter handle?
OneManicNinja?
Good OPSEC. She will not give her real name. Unless, did you put it on your slides?
No, sir.
No real name. So, where do you live?
I live on Earth.
United States.
Good enough?
Not even that. Earth, all right. Good. OPSEC so tight, we don't even know. So what you're talking to me about?
Client hacking. This is an interesting interface. This hasn't happened before. Is it working? Okay, let's see if this thing works. Otherwise, we plugged it in a minute ago, and it plugged in, and it was working before I started, and now this thing is no longer lit. There. There we go. There you are, baby. All right. I go by OneManicNinja because it's an anagram of my full name. Go ahead and try and reverse engineer it. You never will. But the thing is that my name is extremely unique. As far as I know, I'm the only me with this full name. I have cousins with similar names, but they're not me. But it sounds pretty cool, so I'm keeping it. So a little bit about me. I'm not a hacker. Do you remember that picture?
I do. What's that picture?
Oh, that was that's Mr. Bot.
Well, the Yank sure. Yeah. And magician.
And I'm not a pen tester, and I'm not an InfoSec professional. That's actually a cutout of him. But in fact, I'm a chef. I went to culinary school, and I earned all my safety and certification, and I've had my own business for 12 years now. So I was invited to speak at this because I'm not an InfoSec professional, but I do a lot of the same stuff. Did you just, someone cheer? Like, yay!
Yes, university.
But I do a lot of stuff that I've since learned that InfoSec professionals do. Is the microphone working okay?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Well, that's only for the recording. The other one is the one that actually goes to the house.
Okay, am I loud enough?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I'm not a hacker or a pen tester or anything like that, but I still use your tricks. And a lot of the same techniques that you would use for pen testing clients, I use that to try and get more information about my clients, but I don't do it for their benefit. I do it for my own benefit. And so we're all in business to make money. Client hacking helps me to get the most money I can from clients. I'm one person who works for me. I don't have a staff of chefs. I try to not even have waiters and waitresses because they're just not reliable, especially where I live now. When I used to live in Los Angeles, I had models and actors who are free every weekend. But here, okay, it's Nashville. It's not even Nashville. But people would rather busk for change on Broadway than actually work. So what I do is in-home fine dining. And the way that works is I usually get a phone call. I suppose I have to point that at that. So they contact me. We used to talk about menu. Then we would talk about the money. Then they would give me their address. I would buy the groceries, and I would go to their house. I don't do it that way. That's how most people do it, but I do not do it this way. What I do now is, oh, by the way, I screwed up this slide, and I can't fix it back. So just pretend like it was working. They contact me, but now instead I get the information about their address first. I get the information about the menu first. Then by the time it talks about getting money and signing the contract, getting the groceries and cooking, if I get the left half of this done, the right half falls into place. So I get all of their information first. And I approach clients as if they should be treating the money as an afterthought because I'm giving them the best experience that they could possibly expect for an in-home fine dining experience. If they bring up money first, I can almost guarantee it's not going to be a lucrative job. And if the first thing someone says to me is, oh, I'm on a budget, I'm like, okay, I'm probably busy that day. Because someone who's on a budget is not going to be looking for the same kind of experience I want to provide. People try to think that they're going to spend $15 on a plated dinner. You can't get a 4-course meal from Taco Bell for $15. You're not getting a 5-course plated dinner from me for much less than that either. So client hacking is my method of choosing which clients I want to work for. I get more affluent clients, I get better opportunities, and more interesting events. I get fewer lame jobs because I have the ability to preemptively turn someone down. It's like any arrangement with any client. You have the opportunity to turn somebody down, you turn them down because it's not going to be a mutually beneficial relationship. They'll pay me money, but is it the amount of money that is going to be sacrificed versus someone else's job? So penny pinching clients and trough feeding is what I usually consider a buffet. So I first started doing this in 2006 because I was concerned about my safety. And I was really trying to figure out, I'm going to skip a bunch of these slides, by the way. Am I going to be comfortable going to this person's house? I don't want somebody to be like someone that I don't want to work with. I mean, basically, if you're inviting a chef to your house, you're inviting someone else to your party. Because I'm in the kitchen, I'm interacting with your guests, but vice versa, do I want to be at this party? Like I've been hired for bachelor parties, and it's just creepy. It's kind of weird. So do I want to work for them? And then if I do, making sure that the client chooses me. I want them to understand that I am the best and the only choice for them to make. So what do? I spend the money on groceries before I even show up. So I need deposits. I need to make sure that they're going to be paying me those deposits in advance. I'm going to a stranger's house for hours. And this is not what I want to happen. If I'm going to a stranger's house, if I'm showing up at someone's house at 3 o'clock, no one expects to hear from me until maybe 2 a.m. So that would be bad. I don't want the it gets the hose again to be part of my business model. So what I do is I find out as much as possible using internet research. I collect the information that in a useful way and then tease that information back out of the client for my personal safety and for my financial safety. So here's an example of an email. You probably can't read it, but it was this was a phishing thing. And people are doing phishing with models, with florists, and also with chefs. They're like, hey, we're going to give you that deposit. It's totally one of those, hey, I'm going to send you a check, and please, we've canceled, keep a portion of it, and we'll send it back. Well, this was happening a lot. And so this is an email from someone after I had posted on my blog, hey, this is not a good situation. Be aware, people are trying to scam you. And so this woman lost over $1,000 because the cashier's check bounced, and she was out that money. They target self-employed people. Even photographers and graphic artists get this. So I'm trying to get a talk that fits into about 30 minutes here. So by learning more about my clients, I learned what kind of events they would expect from me. So they say stuff like, oh, it's like you knew what I wanted. Oh, yeah, because I know everything about you. And I feel like I know you already. It's like, no, I know you already because I've seen where you live and I know that you're celebrating a birthday and I know your kids' names. I know what your kids' favorite toys are. I know what your favorite drink is because it's all in pictures that you've posted online. Nobody has any personal OPSEC. And then people are like, oh, it's so much easier than I thought it would be to hire a chef. I'm like, yeah, because I make it so easy. I make it seem like it's a no-brainer for my clients. So I establish how I might get the most revenue from the job, so I don't leave any money on the table. I can offer additional services based on their lifestyle and their personality. I mean, and I'll talk about this in a minute, but it's such an important point, is that something that you may think is expensive may not be expensive to someone who makes an exponential amount of money more than you do. So think about when you would go out on a date as a teenager versus going out on a date on your 20s and going out on a date on your 30s. You have more money to spend, so it's a whole different relative thing. And also, what I don't charge for, I get tipped for. And tips are nice. Money makes the world go round, right? So how do I get the client's information? They always initiate contact with me. So that's step one. So I just make sure that they give me all their information as much as possible. And it's important to note, since they're coming to me with a need, that is something that I just make sure that I cater to those needs. So I either get an email or I get a phone call. And if I get a phone call, I'm going to get an email. Or excuse me, if I get an email, it's usually coming in also through the contact form. And so if I make a good contact form, they'll fill out all the information. And I just make it so that the form rejects. I do my own HTML coding. The form rejects if they don't fill in the stuff I need them to fill in so that I can get the information that I need. So here's a form. And what I'll point out also here on the middle, if you look at this part right here, I tell them right here, if it's going to be up to 4 guests, it's going to be probably $600. So it kind of turns it off. If someone's not willing to pay $400 for a 4-person dinner, they're not going to hire me. And so that saves me time. Now I'm not dealing with penny pinchers. People are kind of getting an estimate of what I'm trying to do with that. But you do have to keep the form relatively short. Filling in those buttons is much easier than typing stuff out. And this is a hard one. Don't answer the phone. Just if you let it go to voicemail, people will just talk and talk, and they will tell you everything. And I listen to the phone calls like CSI. I'm listening in the background for our kids crying, or, are they calling out to someone else in the background and things like that. So they have to leave a message. I get their caller ID. And I also now get time to do my research. I do try and call people back within about 30 minutes. But this is a sample of what phone messages look like as they come in through Google Voice. So I don't give out my real phone number. Plus, if someone gets creepy, I can block them through Google Voice and they'll never know. So he leaves his phone number, he leaves his name and all this kind of stuff. And this is where I can pretty much give the talk without any notes. So he leaves this message with his phone number, and I get his last name. And by the way, what I'm not doing, I'm not using Maltico. I'm not using spoof card. This is all organic. This is all anything that anybody could do without any special training. I'm just a regular person using the public information. And like I said, I try to call people back within the first 30 minutes. It also gives me the opportunity to tell somebody, oh, I'm so glad I was able to get back to you so quickly. And then it kind of is planting that, well, she did get back to me really quickly. She's on top of her game. So if all you get is the phone number, I like to start with a whitepages.com search. So if I get their home number, then I've got their home address in advance. If I get a work number and it comes up as a voicemail number, you can usually add zeros to the end of it or whatever to get to the main office or the main line. People who call from a cell phone, I use slide dial. Has anyone heard of that? Slide dial is awesome. It will call for you, and you can hear their voicemail without it ever ringing to their phone. So then they're saying, hi, this is so-and-so from such and such a company. I'm not available. And I'm like, yeah, of course you're not, because you don't even know the phone's ringing. But I get all this other information. So slidedial.com. It's free, but you have to listen to ads, and there's nothing you can do to get around that. So here's what happens when I look at White Pages. So I get him, and it's a home phone number, so that's good. Oh, look, I've got his spouse's name. That's handy. What else can I find out about her? So here's his home, at least the street address. And when you click on that, now I've got the full address. And so the first thing I'll do, Sex Offender Registry. Or he's good. Nobody's in the area, so it's okay. Once I get the street address, there's a lot I can do with that. I plug that in to Zillow, Zaba, Melissa Data, Realtor, all these different kind of, if you're a person who's not a note taker, take a picture of this slide. Because these are all the things that I use to research people's street addresses and get information about their house. If I Google a unique address that I already, oh, you want me to go back? Or you got it? If you Google an address you already have the information from, then you can just go into the URL and put in the information that you're searching on, and the rest of it comes up, even if it doesn't come up in a regular search. So it's just backtracking those URLs back out. So more sites come up all the time. So we'll start with a quick Google search on his address. And there he is. Now this is Hendersonville, even though I mentioned there's Gallatin, and that's Hendersonville, so it's something's a little weird. So it's something I'm pointing out to myself. I also use multiple search engines. The things that you see on Google sometimes don't show up on Bing, and I don't use Bing unless I'm not getting a whole lot of results on Google. But Bing has way better image search. When you look at, this is from Zillow's site, but you can get zipped up really close onto their house to get that information. I also like to find out what grocery stores are in the area, because that helps to try and, for my purposes, that I don't have to have a car full of groceries and drive for miles and miles. I also like to zoom in really deep. Sometimes I can look in a picture of their car. Is there a playground in the yard? And so Street View is also your friend. So here are places that I'll plug in people's names and email addresses. People, this one here, amazing. Ridaris, everybody knows about. Spokio is also pretty good. And what's interesting is you can find the first half of the information on one website and the second half of the information on another website, and then you put them together because the first website's like, well, we're going to obfuscate the street number. And then the second website's going to like, we're going to obfuscate the address. I'm like, well, I'm not an idiot, so I can put these two together and get the person's full address. If you ever get a username as that would come up, ooh, wrong button. I'm sorry if I'm blinding someone in that corner with the laser as I keep forgetting which button. So I'll Google the full email address, just the username, just the domain. Do a who is on the domain if it's a unique thing. The username will also sometimes generate through Twitter and through Facebook and that kind of stuff. There's another one that's called Yandex. Has anyone heard of Yandex? Oh, one person? It's a Russian browser, and it is awesome. Shane McDougall did a great talk. There's no Linux? Wah, wah. She said, "Wait, this is why we can't have nice things." But Shane McDougall has a whole talk about how to get into the nitty-gritty of Yandex and all the little codes and stuff like that. Does anyone know him? He won the DEF CON CTF like twice. Okay. So I collect all this data and then I expand on it. Do I find family photos? Who's in the photo? Who are they with? Where's it taken? What's in the background? Gauging their wealth. Clothes, jewelry, toys, cars, right? Are they posing with jet skis? People who pose with jet skis are not, I'm sorry, but my dinner is on a budget. These are completely mutually exclusive. And I look at the file names of photos to try and figure out what are they doing, if it's an anniversary, birthday, other kinds of celebration. I'll also change the URLs of the photos to backtrack up the links and see if I can look in the directories. People don't protect their directories, especially for private sites. It's kind of amazing. I find everything, like more than I need to sometimes. But before I go on, I want to talk about why this is so important with my business. If I want them to decide that I'm the best fit for them. They choose me, but only if I've already allowed them to choose me. Because I'm only me. I'm only the only one person who works for me. I don't want to leave money on the table because expensive is relative. So if you think about how much would you pay for a nice dinner out versus your parents versus you're teenagers, this kind of thing. These people have different experiences for what's relative. I have lost jobs because I haven't charged them enough. That's stupid. I don't do that anymore. I make sure that what I offer them is comparable to what they are probably asking for. So let's go back to figuring out this guy. Plowing through some of these results, you get a lot of crap, and there's a lot of needle in the haystack stuff. LinkedIn, definitely good stuff. Oh, speaking of LinkedIn, I have like fake profiles on every account so that I can then back search. I added all of the speakers to my fake LinkedIn profile. They don't know, but if they got friended by a recruiter, that was me. Sorry. Huh? Oh yeah, dude, you're hired. You've got a great reputation. I love your LinkedIn profile. Oh, you're so welcome. But you have to if you want to use those, you have to cultivate them. So I have a little appointment reminder in my book, in my calendar program, that tickles every 2.5 weeks or so that I need to go poke at my LinkedIn profile, because that personality has more friends than me in real life, which is fine. But everyone loves a recruiter. So I've got stuff of where he works. So let's look at more information on Radaris. So I've also got all this other information on him. This is our guy. So then I can look around and like, okay, there he is in Gallatin. This is what I was thinking of. And that's his wife, who also lives in Gallatin. Oh, that's his wife's first name. So that could be a false flag. So those are the kinds of things that I'm continually checking on. I got to go back a slide. So his previous address said he lived in Brookfield, Wisconsin. So I look up his name in Brookfield, Wisconsin. And he went to high school in Texas, too. Southlake, Texas. So I can figure out which information is our target. And so let's click back over to that. Clicking. Here's his LinkedIn. And there's no photo, but he filled out all this other great information. Like, oh, he went to University of Wisconsin, and he finished relatively recently. And if we wanted to be really nosy, we could investigate some of the groups he belongs to and find out more information about him for that. Is this blowing anyone's mind yet? Or is this kind of like amateur stuff? That a chef would be doing this? Like anybody that you're calling to have come to your house? So let's find out more about his job. So we're going to Google his name and his company. It's useful, especially if you can find someone with a less common name. He's got a pretty common name. But here's a link that I found that looked kind of interesting. He went on a father-son fishing trip. And I wasn't going to image search the guy, but there he was. And so what else can I learn about him? Let's back up on that URL tree again up there, this part up here. And we find out that he is taking guided fishing trips with a guy named Carper. But okay. Job security, he knew from the day one, right? But it looks like he's good with spending $250 on a half-day fishing trip. So this is a good potential client for me. And so then this is his wife. Another wonderful LinkedIn profile. And we found out that she went to University of Wisconsin too. So they're college sweethearts. Aww. And she also likes going on fishing trips with Mr. Carper. So he's done this multiple times. And I can keep digging and all of this kind of stuff. I can look up combinations of their names to find out. I get stuff like PTAs, charities, donations to financial, not corporate. Okay.
The wedding ring seems extremely large.
Doesn't it seem kind of big?
No.
That's a nice little ring she's got. So anyway, so I want to see is this going to be for some kind of event or something like this? So now I'm going to look up information The trouble with married women is that sometimes they have married names and maiden names. So sometimes I get some maiden names, and even though that this is a pay-to-play website, they still give me so much information. So I'm going to Google this and see if I can find a wedding registry on her. But what I did find was a soccer page. She has like a fan page on a soccer thing, which led me to this article. And so now I have more information. This was written in 2003 when she was a junior in college. And so that means, if I do a little math in my head, she was about 21 or 22. And so she's probably about 34 right now. So this is information I need. But I did notice down here on the bottom where it talks about how she was only on the field for an hour over the past 2 years. So I'm not going to talk sports with this woman because she wasn't very good. So I'm still searching. Say that again. I know, right? So there's information about the dates and things like that. So, oh look, Facebook is usually good for birthdays. Cute wedding photo. More information. So I'm checking the birthdayregistry.com. She's under both her married name and her maiden name. You can also do searches under Amazon wish list to find birthdays. If you have someone's birthday and their zip code, you pretty much, in their name, you can pretty much get everything. You also get to see what kind of hobbies and books and things on their wish list. And that's always fun. So like, this is the closest thing I could find to her exact birthday. And it's like, okay, well, her star sign's a Scorpio. Okay. Libra. And her Chinese year is the rooster. What the hell? Oh, wait, look at that. There's the year. I've got a 30-day window of when her birthday is. So, pretty simple if you do a little math. I know when her college years were, and I know that because of how Chinese New Year's work, that is that. So maybe this was for her birthday. And maybe he got her a puppy instead. But if I needed to know her exact birthday, I could pay for the info. But I've never had to pay. I mean, I only use this information to upsell. So like the way that people, if they're getting married, like they don't want to tell florists and caterers and things like that it's a wedding because they think that their prices are going to be jacked up. Well, yeah, because Bridezilla is not a term I invented. That exists because everyone has to be the princess on their perfect special day. So then if I found anything on Twitter, I can set up an if then then that. So I can see, are they talking about this event that's coming up? It's all going to be sent directly to me. Every tweet that they have, as it happens, as it comes in. So you get the idea. I'm just poking around to find out what I can learn about them. And now I feel like I'm pretty comfortable. I could offer a package that they'd like. So when they're hiring you for a service, they expect you to ask the questions. So you make that call back. And this is where the social engineering part of the project comes in. You don't want to come off sounding like a stalker. Like, oh, hey. So the trick, what I do is I try and ask questions that I know the answer to so that they answer the question and then they keep talking. Because as they keep talking, now I'm getting more information that I've led them with that question in the first place. And I want to try and make whatever I have them talk about come across as their idea. So just shut up and listen. So this is my formula for my career, basically. It's a safe, comfortable environment for me, hand-picked clientele with less lower caliber gigs, and more money doing fun events. Happy chef. Questions? Yes? Uh-huh. Well, like I said, I don't really answer my phone right away. And so, for the most part, if I'm available to try and call them back, I mean, like right now, there's no reason why I should be booked until the end of June. But every weekend right now is booked until the end of June. So I try and find out from this, is this something that they want an event for, or is it something that I can sell a gift certificate for? Because if I can sell them a gift certificate, that's money that I get no matter what. The only thing that I haven't been paid for is the groceries, which is straight reimbursement on groceries. But I've got money in the bank. And every year there's a few gift certificates that don't get cashed in. Oops. That's what happens. Like a 30 minutes. If I can find out basically I need their address so I can get their Zillow information. Square footage of house versus how much they paid. The other thing that's a nice factor that helps me, I mean, if I have like 3 people call in the same day, I'm only the one person. So if if people are calling for that same event, I can only give them, I'll give you the next slide. There's me. I can only work for one person at a time. And personally, for my own self-care, I try and only work 1 day in a weekend because I don't have roadies to do my dishes and carry my crap around. I have to do all that myself as well. So, but I might pick between client A, client B, client C for a certain date of which person is going to have the best event for my purposes. And sometimes it's fine to just do a dinner for 2. I don't need to make all the money. I'd rather work with people who I think would develop a relationship. There are certain clients that I know just basically want food in the house and not go out to a restaurant. And that's fine too. But it gives me the opportunity to be a little more selective of who I'm working for. Did that answer your question? Okay. Yes?
So do you do all this research before you make that first call back to them?
Yep. I do my very best to never answer the phone. Most of the time, if people fill out the website, they don't know when I'm seeing it.
Right.
So, and I will have people fill that out like, midnight. So then I get until 10 o'clock the next morning to do whatever I want to research them and find out. But sometimes it's like my own personal capture the flag. How much can I find out about them in that short amount of time before I have to call them back and be like, hi, yeah, I'd be delighted to do your dinner. Oh, you know what the best is? When I see pictures of their house. Do you know that like really wealthy people who buy really expensive houses, there's like a video about their house? And so you get like a private tour of their kitchen and their bedrooms and everything. It's amazing. So like I know they have a grill. I know they have double sinks on a giant island. So that for that client, I might suggest a cooking class. Hey, invite some friends. We'll all stand around and drink wine. I get to drink wine and hang out with people, and a little, because otherwise the party would last really a long time. You don't want your chef too intoxicated. But yeah, I try and churn through those pretty quickly, and so that I get to say, I'm glad I was able to get back to you so quickly. Most of the times, people will say out flat out, you're like the only person who looks like they have their act together. Because of my website and because of all the rest of those kinds of details, I know who my competition is, and I'm better. I mean, I'm a better cook. That I can stand. But everything in my presentation is to make sure that you understand it's going to be the most elegant event you could do in your house. Yes?
Where did you work all this? You said you found this 30 years.
Yeah, well, it was really because I didn't want to go into somebody's scary house. I mean, like if you were a client and you said, hey, can you come do my party in 2 weeks? I would say, sure. Where am I going? What am I getting into? Who are you? Right? I don't know you. I get to know you a little bit from this stuff. And I always, when I enter it as a calendar event, I invite my husband so that if I don't come home, at least there's somewhere to start. So far, everything's been good. But this has led to, I have had since I gave this talk before, I've been invited to do some open source research. And Like there was a company called, has anyone ever heard of the Chertoff Group? Yeah? No? Department of Homeland Security? Michael Chertoff? I did a spec job to do social engineering and open source intelligence on them. And within a week, I had 2 vectors into the company. I had one of them was I don't know how to knit, but I was going to ask knitting advice from the executive vice president in her favorite Starbucks, which she happens to be the Foursquare mayor of. Because I know what her picture looks like, because everybody puts bios on their stupid pages with pictures and how many people they have in their family and what part of town, where they grew up. I'm like, give it all to me. Thank you. I'll take it all. And the other one was one of the interns, I found a picture of him, and I found a picture of him and his sister at this pizza place, and I told him that we're going to open up a new pizza place in D.C., and your sister told me that I should call you. So we'd like to, we're just getting started, and we want to invite you, we'd love to drop pizzas off at your place. What door should I come in? It's done. I don't live in D.C., but I'm certain that either one of those vectors would have worked. You had a question?
Yeah, so prior to you starting this methodology in post, have you noticed you've been able, how many fewer gigs have you been able to do while still maintaining the same sort of quality of business that you like to have before? Were you able to reduce the number of gigs?
I am just a girl who can't say no. And Franklin is one of the wealthiest counties. Franklin is one of the wealthiest cities and one of the wealthiest counties in Tennessee. So it's kind of like the Beverly Hills of the South. And no, for real, these people have so much money. Have you been there? It's nuts. And they have like fountains in their front yards and driveways that go for forever. And it's fantastic. But, so it's harder to turn down. I was like, oh, you have $1 million house? Sure, I'll come over. She lives in a building where I have a client. Yes. Well, no, she has a condo in a building that I know the name of. I shouldn't say out loud. Yes. Oh, I didn't see you back there. Yes.
Do you consider how incredibly dangerous the particular route you're taking to collect your OSINT could be in the event that one of your clients realizes you're doing this level of research, or one of your clients ends up dead and this level of research is in your browser history? Like this would completely, as a person who works on the federal government side, like
Yeah.
this poor guy who, by the way, it took me about 2 seconds to get his last name, his address, and his social security number from my iPhone, and you had his stuff redacted. So we'll probably need to figure something out with that slide deck on the talks. But my point is, like, if this dude ends up dead now, like, do you have any concerns about doing this level of, some of this stuff is very personal. Like, if you're looking for their children's schools, like, do you think that maybe this goes a little too far into paid contractual OSINT work as opposed to doing a little bit of research before you perform your duties? It's not a hack on you, it's just have you considered the implications of the research that you're performing?
I actually, honestly, have never considered implications because no one else would see this, except for this one guy, which I would love to know how you helped to get to the end of that, because I will edit the slides out some more. That's why I tried covering up faces and things like that. But yeah, if someone ended up dead in their own house, that would kind of suck. I don't know what else to tell you. I don't.
Right. And then, if they say, oh, but they contacted this person to do the cooking, and oh shit, like she's been looking at his kid's school, she's been looking up where they got married, where he goes fishing, researching his history, researching his house, how much money he has. You talk about jet skis, personal property. I mean, you kind of built a case against yourself.
That's pretty interesting.
Plain, like,
I'm
worst case scenario.
no, and that's important because it's not something I'd ever considered. I'm looking out for my own safety
Sure.
going to someone's house. That was, and someone said, how is that? That was my first intent, was to find out who these people are. And then as I found more information, I'm not looking for their kids, but if I'm seeing a picture and there's a playground in their backyard, they probably got kids.
I understand rabbit holes.
Yeah.
You know, I fall down every day. But, you know, I don't.
No, I appreciate it. And I'd love to talk about that afterwards.
The argument you should make, price discrimination. You're doing what any big business would do. You use the customer's personal information, you get the optimal price that they are willing to pay for good.
And I'm not paying for any extra information. Everything I'm finding is out in the open. So there is that. Yes. I think it would cross the line, for me, it would cross the line of creepy if I was paying to get more information and it wasn't something that was just open, available in public. I can't tell white pages, hey, you know what? It's shitty of you to be putting that stuff out in the internet.
Well, for instance, like people in Tokyo,
Yeah.
I have tried for years to scrub all the information off of there, and it just keeps going back. And it's because there's like this.
Because it's always constantly being scraped.
Right, and
Yeah.
they don't have my current information necessarily, but they've got historical information.
Right.
And so they'll request
And I'm using that.
all the sites, and then they'll take it off, and then it just gets this person repopulates it from there.
Right.
So I guess what I'm saying is like something that is price conscious that is trying to get rid of their information online. It's impossible because of
The constant scraping. Right.
And then so there's people again not attacked, but there's people using that information for various purposes, whether they're useful.
Mm-hmm.
Driver's license or something, It's like, yeah, I'm going to give you more of my information.
Exactly.
That's a great idea.
Right. Yes. Sorry. There's you second. You first in the back. Sometimes if I see an address in an apartment complex, I might not choose that particular address because I know that their kitchen is this tiny little galley kitchen that's difficult for me to work in. Sometimes, and that can just depend on my mood. I mean, typically right now is supposed to be a very, very dead, between Valentine's Day and graduation season. I'm not supposed to be this busy. But I'm literally the only chef. This is the only thing I can think of. I'm the only person that's coming up on Google searches, which is really weird to try and be private to this and be super public and be the only one that shows up on searches for my professional stuff. But I mean, that's pretty much the disqualifier. And if someone tells me straight out it's going to be a bachelor party, I'm like, why? Why? Go to a bar. Don't, and people who are renting, I do a lot of work in vacation homes like VRBO and Airbnb. And I always contact the owner saying, I'm going to be cooking at this house. Is there anything I should know? Because I don't want to be in a situation where like someone else hires me and they didn't have the permission to have a party that big in that house, because I don't want to be attached to that. So those are the kinds of things that will disqualify. Is that good? Yes. Yeah.
I guess because your first scenario with your chef, and you look on the internet,
And I have knives.
and an Asian bring your chef types.
Right.
But anyway, more importantly, what give us a bit of scale or give us a formula for the total, household income of the people. How do you gauge what end of the scale and how much and what percentage you want a minimum what percentage you want to be minimum made? You charge for travel, you charge for all other type of stuff. How's the
No, and that's a very good question because, for example, if someone is more than an hour and a half's drive from where I live, I do charge a little more. But I also use as a selling point that, do you get paid to drive to work? Why should I? And then they're like, oh, well, that makes sense. But my general rate is higher if I have to drive a long time. There are certain clients who who are emphatic about wanting to hire me, and sometimes I'll say, okay, if I'm doing 2 back-to-back jobs, which I try not to do, I might charge them extra so that I'm paying for half of a hotel stay. They can pay for half, I'll pay for half, that kind of stuff, because I'm not going to be driving. My house is very far from where my clients live. I'm grateful for all the questions, yes.
If they don't disclose that they're in a place like the Airbnb or rental, how are you contacting them?
They almost always tell me that they're renting. And it's, like I just got one while I was in the Lockpick Village. We're 7 girls, we're going to do a bachelorette party, and we're going to be in an Airbnb home. So then one of the first thing I do is say, oh, I wonder if I've cooked in that home already. And can you tell me the URL? So they tell me the URL of that house. Then I can go contact. They mostly will answer any questions I ask. There's very rare that someone is like, well, I don't really want to tell you where I'm staying. Well, I have to go there to cook, so you are going to have to tell me where you're staying. And plus, it gives me an opportunity to save you some money on rentals if I can see what's already in the house. And then people are accommodating for that. But going into a house that isn't even my house to do cooking, it exposes the person who owns that VRBO to another level of liability that I would not be. I'm not a renter in that house.
Sure, no, I just wondered if you were getting the information about Airbnb because you were cross-checking with county real estate records.
Oh, no. That has never come up. Everyone always tells me, oh, we're renting a house for having a big party. So I just follow that trail of information. Yes?
Followed up on that, have you used county GIS records as a source yet?
No, the only time I've used that was when the neighbor's cow got out of its property because we didn't know who to tell. There's a cow on the interstate and you need to come take care of it. And so we called animal control and they're like, yeah, we don't handle people's cows. So where I live is pretty rural. But so we found, my husband and I were trying to figure out how do we contact this. We don't have neighbors to speak of. The property next to us is a goat farm. So we found that just to find out who owns it. But I don't care who owns the house, just who's living in the house for that kind of thing. I appreciate all the questions. Anyone else? Cool. Thanks.
Real quick, yeah, sure.
Give your cable back, yes.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. Now I'm kind of thinking back to that earlier, why no one has Facebook.
Thank you so much.
Not that it's a bad thing, but, that's doxing, right? Getting someone social.